person's basic needs are not fulfilled. He doesn't have enough to eat, he has no shelter, he has no access to medical care when he falls sick. Does he then begin to behave like a beast? Does he begin to lead a life that is more degraded than that of an animal? Does he turn insensitive and begin to torture his fellow human beings? How is this life that exists at the lowest rung of the society? Where does the boundary between humanity and inhuman behavior lie? The book that searches for answers to these questions is the collection of short stories entitled Maran Swasta hot Aahe, Death is Getting Cheaper by Baburao Bagul, the topic of the 72nd episode of Granthyatra. Baburao Bagul was born in 1930 at Vihitgaon village in Nashik district. Being born in a Dalit family, he experienced discriminatory treatment right from his childhood. He lived with his maternal aunt in Mumbai to pursue his schooling, but because of financial difficulties, had to give up education after passing his matriculation exam. The well-known literature and social reformer Annabhau Sathe lived in the same labor camp of Matunga where Bagul lived. Through his association with Sathe, Bagul joined the labor movement. In 1955, he got a job in the railway workshop and moved to Surat. But he was unable to find an accommodation because of caste-based discrimination. Bagul then concealed his caste to get a house on rent. Based on this experience, he wrote a short story, When I Concealed My Caste, that was published in the magazine Navayug and caused a revolution. His collection of stories, Death is Getting Cheaper, was published in 1969. Bagul's short stories and novels such as Heinous, Caging, Pausha, The Night, Landless, The Silent Hero, and Unprecedented initiated a new trend in Marathi literature. Influence of the philosophies of Karl Marx, Lenin, Jyotirao Phule, Dr. Ambedkar, Gorky, Chekhov, and Sharat Chandra Chatterjee inspired Bagul's writings. His writings in turn had a major influence on Dalit writers who began to pen down their life experiences. This launched a new wave of Dalit literature in Marathi. The stories in the collection Death is Getting Cheaper showcase a stark portrayal of the life of penury of the exploited and neglected class of society, of those living in slums and on streets. We come across characters such as prostitutes serving the lowest rung of society, outcast mothers who have no means of earning a living, sick beggars living on the street, and thugs belonging to gangs of outlaws. Bagul shows us a mirror to this section of the society through his writings. He neither exaggerates nor sensationalizes his writings, but it appeals to the readers because it reflects reality. The protagonist of the very first tale, The Loot, is a prostitute named Vanchala. She has been sold to the brothel by her own father, who is now enjoying her earnings. When Vanchala is outraged because of his increasing demands for money, she fights with the brothel's owner Gangu. But Gangu summons Sidrappa to beat up Vanchala. Sidrappa demands money from Gangu for his services. Hearing the commotion, the landlord of the building arrives and demands money, and the beat constable too arrives to demand his share. In the end, Vanchala and other prostitutes are left to face their endless painful life. Lively descriptions of events, sympathy, and authentic emotions are the hallmarks of Bagul's writings. Fernandez, the protagonist of the tale Hard Labor, hosts card games on the roadside for gambling and incites the passers-by to bet money. This is his only means of earning and providing for his family after he loses his job. His associates and his 13-year-old son work hard to draw customers by standing in the burning sun on an empty stomach all day. They even endure beatings by the police, yet they are not able to earn anything. At the conclusion of the tale, Bagul writes, "The 7 of them and Daniel were returning to the slum. They walked in silence. Fernandez did not feel like going home. He did not have the courage to face his wife empty-handed. If she had regained consciousness, she would die at his hands, he thought. Daniel lagged behind the group. He was afraid his father was going to beat him because he had not whistled on time to warn the others. When the police jeep had passed him, he was busy watching the game of kites in the sky. The protagonist of the story Hunger is Bhagu, a fisherwoman with 2 young sons. She is suffering from high fever and her hungry children are sitting by her bed helplessly. When she regains consciousness, she sends her sons to seek food from the village headman's wife. Her older son endures with fortitude the insults meted out to him by the headman's wife and brings home some food. After she recovers a little, Bhagu steps out for fishing so that her children can get a decent meal. The children are thrilled as they play in the sand on the shore and are elated by the thought of a full meal. She felt a thud of physical pain as she lifted each foot, and her ecstatic children followed her, laughing and playing. They scattered happiness like the flowers on a creeper. They told stories to each other of ghosts living in the water and how the king of ghosts held burning torches in his hands and danced on full moon and new moon nights. They threw stones at serpents caught in the mud. When Bhagu's son spots a venomous snake in the floodwaters, he kills it, fearing it may bite his mother who is fishing in the waters ahead. Later, when they return home, Bhagu cooks the fish and the family eats it for dinner. In the dead of the night, Bhagu suddenly wakes up in panic, wondering if she cooked a snake instead of fish and if her children were going to die from its venom. The guilt pangs worsen her fear and she dies. Bagul effectively portrays a mother's pain of being unable to feed her hungry children, her struggle to work despite her illness for the sake of her sons, and the innocent yet mature behavior of her children in this tale. A focus on the travails of women is an important aspect of Bagul's writings. Women who suffer exploitation because of their so-called lower caste and also because of their gender often appear in his short stories. He shines a light on their predicament of being caught between the twin blades of caste and gender. Pandu's mother in the story titled Mother has endured torture from her distrusting husband for many years. After his death, the society continues to suspect her morality and harasses her in many ways. Fed up with this physical and mental torture and to give vent to her desires suppressed for many years, she gets close to the supervisor who surveys the work of laborers like her. Yet, there is no escape for her. The poison of her sullied reputation begins to seep into the mind of her son. Pandu forgot his troubles and sat up. He looked outside. The spring in his mother's stride, her straight posture and upright neck, her new properly worn sari, and the rare sight of her lips red with betel leaf made him decide that she was a bad woman. Mentally, he conceded this to her enemies. In his mind, he left her side and joined her opponents. Watching her son scrutinizing her from head to toe, any vestiges of love for him in her mind got incinerated in the fire of her rage. To her, he looked petty, like her sick husband who had turned into a villain with distrust. Whether it is a woman giving birth in the biting cold on an open field in the story People in the Field, or the innocent and beautiful sister of artist Prabhakar who is tortured to death by her husband, whether it is young Rose who runs from pillar to post to get her innocent husband released from prison, or Barku's daughter who grows up on street and is pushed into prostitution, the pain of these women is harsh and burning. It makes the reader restless. People who are victims of social discrimination and those living in slums or on the outskirts of towns, those who are immersed in suffering and poverty, Dalits, the oppressed and humiliated persons who rebel against atrocities are at the center of Bagul's stories. He picturizes a burning social reality while exploring the desires and aspirations, the joys and sorrows, and the perversions of these people. Great empathy for the weak and Dalit, a firm stand against oppression, and a suitable raw language gives a unique and characteristic form to Bagul's writings. Bagul is gifted with a poetical mind and an all-encompassing power of keen observation. This enables him to observe the fierce competition to attract customers among the boys who polish boots at the roadside, the hunger in the belly of those promoting illegal gambling, the disease rotting the body of the beggar, and even beyond that, their struggle to keep alive their emotions and their vulnerability. His pictures of grave reality point to a wider meaning beyond the here and now. In the story Thugs, 4 members of a criminal gang are lying in a cemetery after being beaten up. When a prostitute arrives on the scene, they begin to fight over her and end up killing each other. The accomplices, who had been tending to their injured leader and praising him just a short while ago, fight among each other and end up dead. We have with us today Professor Manohar Jadhaw, who will talk to us more about Baburao Bagul's collection of short stories that effectively portrays the social perceptions and the pain of those living on the edge of the society.
मगाशी archanamirajkar यांनी बाबुराव बागुलांच्या मरण स्वस्थ होत आहे या कथासंग्रहावर अतिशय विस्तृत आणि मूलगामी स्वरूपाचं विवेचन केलं ते आपण ऐकलं. बाबुराव बागुलांच्या संदर्भात आणखीही बऱ्याच गोष्टी आपल्याला सांगता येतील. त्यातलं सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं वैशिष्ट्य म्हणजे बाबुराव बागुल हे केवळ दलित साहित्य प्रवाहातील नव्हे तर मराठी साहित्यातील एक महत्त्वाचे कथाकार, कादंबरीकार आणि कवी म्हणून ओळखले जातात. बाबुरावांनी शहरी जीवनातील जे वंचित, दुर्बल, उपेक्षित घटक आहेत त्यांना आपल्या कथेच्या केंद्रस्थानी आणलं. बाबुराव बागुलांच्या आधी मराठी साहित्यामध्ये 2 लेखकांनी म्हणजे अण्णाभाऊ साठे आणि शंकरराव खरात यांनी देखील गाव कुसाबाहेरच्या वंचितांचं जीवनचित्रण केलेलं होतं. उदाहरणार्थ रामोशी असतील, कैकाडी असतील यांचं चित्रण पहिल्यांदा अण्णाभाऊ आणि शंकरराव खरात यांनी केलं. पण बाबुरावांचं वेगळेपण असं की शहरी जीवनातील जे आत्यंतिक उपेक्षित आहेत की ज्यांची रोजची जगण्याची लढाई चालू आहे, रोजचा संघर्ष ज्यांच्या वाटेला आलेला आहे, जे प्रतिष्ठेपासून वंचित आहेत, ज्यांना माणूस म्हणून जगण्याचा अधिकार उपलब्ध झालेला नाही, अशा लोकांना बाबुराव बागुलांनी आपल्या कथेच्या केंद्रस्थानी आणलेला आहे. बाबुराव बागुलांचा विद्रोह हा ज्वालाग्राही विद्रोह आहे. हा केवळ विद्रोह नाही, हा केवळ आक्रमकपणा नाही, तर हा व्यवस्था परिवर्तनाचा विचार आहे. कारण बाबुराव बागुलांच्या लेखनाच्या प्रेरणा जर आपण पाहिल्या तर कार्ल मार्क्स, महात्मा ज्योतिराव फुले, डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर, राजर्षी शाहू महाराज यांचा जो प्रागतिक विचार आहे, हा प्रागतिक विचार बाबुराव बागुलांची लेखनाची प्रेरणा आहे. प्रसिद्ध कवी यशवंत मनोहर यांनी बाबुराव बागुलांसंबंधी अतिशय महत्त्वाचं विधान केलेलं आहे. ते विधान असं आहे की मराठी कथा जिथं थांबते किंवा मराठी कथा जिथं संपते तिथून बाबुराव बागुलांची कथा सुरू होते. याचा अर्थ असा की मराठी कथेने जे जीवनचित्रण केलेलं नाही, ज्या जीवनचित्रणाला स्पर्श केलेला नाही, असं जीवनचित्रण बाबुराव बागुलांनी चित्रित केलेलं आहे. आणि यातलं पुढचं वैशिष्ट्य असं की या कथा काल्पनिक नाहीत. बाबुराव बागुल प्रत्यक्ष माटुंगा लेबर कॅम्पमध्ये मुंबईमध्ये ज्या प्रकारचं जीवन जगले, ज्या प्रकारचे अनुभव त्यांनी घेतले, त्या अनुभवाचं चिंतन करून त्यांनी आपल्या कथेमध्ये त्या अनुभवाचा समावेश केलेला आहे. अनुभवाच्या आधारे त्यांनी कथालेखन केलेलं आहे. अर्चनाताईंनी सांगितलं की जेव्हा मी जात चोरली होती ही कथा काल्पनिक नाही आहे, बाबुराव बागुलांचा हा प्रत्यक्ष अनुभव आहे. तसेच त्यांच्या मरण स्वस्थ होत आहे यामधल्या ज्या कथा आहेत, या सगळ्या कथांच्या मागे बाबुराव बागुलांचा एक विशिष्ट जीवनविषयक दृष्टिकोन आहे, व्यवस्था परिवर्तनाचा विचार आहे आणि अनुभवाचं अधिष्ठान आहे. हे आपण लक्षात घेतलं पाहिजे. धन्यवाद.
The book Death is Getting Cheaper received the Hari Narayan Apte Award. Several of Bagul's stories were translated into Gujarati, Hindi and English. Bagul succeeded in providing a broad base of humanism to the Dalit movement in literature. Do read this book that has made a huge contribution to Dalit literature. We shall meet in the next episode of Granthyatra to understand a play based on a strange sort of hunting. Until then, keep reading.